Hello, Oscar here, taking you through stories people are talking about and sharing around the world on Newsfeed today. The internet goes wild after the White House confirms Space Force will be a thing. Fears authorities will use social media to avenge protesting students in Bangladesh. A frenzy down under after Aussies find out they're entitled to a free portrait of the Queen. And Lewis Hamilton tweets a plea against plastic pollution. Top of our newsfeed today. Some call it a complete waste of money. Others say it's the ultimate distraction from bad headlines. Either way, US President Donald Trump is terribly proud of his proposed Space Force. His team has just announced it'll be up and running, defending the final frontier by 2020, which also happens to be the same year that Trump plans to be re-elected for a second term in office.
America will always seek peace in space as on the Earth, but history proves that peace only comes through strength. And in the realm of outer space, the United States Space Force will be that strength in the years ahead.
Well, Trump's campaign is calling on supporters to choose a logo for the Space Force. And naturally, America's comedians have been having a field day, including Late Show host Stephen Colbert. Take a look.
And today, Sky Marshal Trump. Yes. Sky Marshal Trump sent his supporters an email letting them vote for the Space Force's new insignia. They will vote for their favorite, and the final choice will be made by the Electoral Space College. But there were six. Six does not seem like enough options to us. So the Late Show has made a few of our own. Space Force, Mars has cleaner water than Flint. In space, no one can hear you collude. And one small step for man, really small hands for a man.
Oh dear, Donald Trump isn't normally short of words on Twitter, but this time he just had this to say. And as you can imagine, the Space Force announcement has lit up social media, with NASA Watch wondering, what will the Space Force uniform look like? Red Raccoon tweeted, "Thank goodness for Space Force. Now we can finally find out what's on the other side of flat Earth," referring to conspiracy theorists who don't believe the world is round. While veteran newsman Dan Rather struck a more serious tone, saying, "When I hear Space Force, I think of boys playing in a sandbox with their G.I. Joes and model rocket ships, not a sober evaluation of the risks of military escalation in or on the final frontier." In Bangladesh, protests over the killing of 2 school children by a minibus are subsiding, but there are now fears authorities will use social media posts as evidence to arrest some of the tens of thousands of demonstrators. We take a look at Bangladesh's history of youth activism.
What's happening in Bangladesh is so much more than a debate over road safety. 2 teenagers were hit by a bus, and it shook the nation to its core. The country's largest media outlets and internet services were forced to shut down for 24 hours. And thousands of youth took to the streets calling for justice. But it's not something new. Bangladesh has a long history of student protest movements. In 1952, they protested the then-ruling Pakistani government's decision to make Urdu the only recognized language. Ultimately, that led to Bangladesh breaking away from Pakistan. In 1983, students came out against an education policy that made them pay half the cost of their studies and made Arabic compulsory. 10 students were killed by the army. Then in 1987, there were more protests against the military regime of Muhammad Irshad. Noor Hussain, a student at the time, was shot dead and became a symbol of the youth resistance for generations to come. During the 1990s, mass uprisings emerged to topple the military regime, leading to a rise in student organizations like Chhatra Dal and the Chhatra League to fight the autocratic government. Then, in 2007, students banned the military from entering public universities after soldiers assaulted students at Dhaka University. The military were forced to apologize and withdraw from the campus. In recent times, political parties have taken note of the power of student politics. Some current student bodies are largely controlled by outside forces. But that hasn't stopped the new generation of Bangladeshi youth taking action. What impact will they have this time?
Let's have a look now at what else is trending on social media. It wasn't your average day at training for Arsenal. The team tweeted that a Rwandan dancing troupe had paid a surprise visit to the team at their training ground in Hertfordshire. And the players seemed to love it. It's all part of a partnership between the Gunners and Rwanda's tourism board. The dancers performed the Intore, which means the best of the best and symbolises pride and victory. Quite fitting, don't you think? Meanwhile, former Arsenal midfielder Santi Cazorla has returned to his original club, Villarreal, but check out how the Spanish club chose to unveil him. They enlisted the help of a magician who magically made the 33-year-old appear in a glass box filled with smoke. Fans seem to love it, but we still don't get it. And Australian vlogger Dominic Porras has started a new Instagram trend called Instaception, which involves dramatically making up a feature of your face, painting on a frame that mimics an Insta post while leaving the rest of your face plain. It's a play on the plethora of makeup tutorials on Instagram, many of which aim to completely change the way you look, a la the Kardashians. Well, it's not every day that the Dalai Lama finds himself having to apologise for something, but he's now said sorry for blaming India's first Prime Minister for the breakup of the country. The controversial partition of India in 1947 created Pakistan, and the division is still a sore point for many people in both countries.
Mistake always happen. Now look back, India. I think Mahatma Gandhi ji very much willing Prime Ministership give to Jinnah, but Pandit Nehru refused.
US retailer Gap Kids has just released its Gap to School advert, which shows a bunch of youngsters generally having a great time. But the ad has created a bit of a stir on social media, and for once it's for all the right reasons. Melinda has more.
It was launched at the beginning of the month, and ever since, Gap's Back to School ad campaign has been making waves. At first glance, the wholesome group of children don't look out of the ordinary, but on closer inspection, you'll notice how diverse the group is. Amongst them, a young girl with a hijab and black children with natural hair. People noticed this and really loved it. Model Hamdia Ahmed, who was the first Miss Maine hijabi contestant, wrote,
"This makes me so happy. Oh my God."
American activist Blair Imani shared the ad, saying,
"Finally, a diverse campaign that doesn't center whiteness."
Others are concerned this is just a way of gaining publicity.
Disgusting. When money makes the world go round, you get this.
But why is this such a big deal when it should be the norm?
Let's go around the world now for some other stories you need to know this Friday. Samsung has unveiled its latest smartphone, the Galaxy Note 9, and the South Korean tech firm says it's a mobile gamer's dream. So much so that it's partnered with the widely popular Fortnite game, giving Samsung users first dibs when it's released on Android devices. More bad news for those of us glued to our smartphones. Turns out that the blue light they emit could speed up blindness. Researchers at the University of Toledo have revealed that prolonged exposure to the light triggers poisonous molecules that can cause macular degeneration. Time to cut back on the screen time, folks, after Newsfeed, of course. We recently told you how police in India are cracking down on people doing the Kiki challenge, which involves jumping out of a moving vehicle and dancing to Drake's In My Feelings. Well, now a court in Mumbai has ordered 3 people who jumped out of a moving train to clean the railway station for 3 days. Ouch. And Facebook is being proactive again, this time over the issue of 3D printed guns. The social media giant says it'll ban accounts that host digital blueprints to make the DIY weapons. A federal judge has already issued a temporary ban on uploading the plans after several US states went to court. Did you know that every Australian is entitled to a free portrait of the Queen? Turns out that many Aussies didn't know either and only found out thanks to an article in Vice a couple of days ago. Since then, politicians down under have been bombarded with requests for their photo of the world's longest reigning monarch. Karen has more.
Australians are very fond of criticising their politicians for wasting taxpayers' money. So a lot of Australians were a bit surprised this week to discover that among the entitlements the politicians have is the entitlement to hand out Australian flags and portraits of the Queen to whoever wants them among their constituents. That's the Queen of England, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, who is also, of course, the Queen of Australia. Australia is still a constitutional monarchy, but the pollsters tell us that most of us, some 70%, would like to become a republic. So how much market is there for portraits of the Queen? Well, since that entitlement got a bit of attention this week, quite a bit it seems, politicians are being bombarded with requests for portraits of Her Majesty. It does seem a little strange given that Republican sentiment, and it's not clear what Australians are going to do with them, although there have been some suggestions that they might find a place for them, some people anyway, in the smallest room in the house above the throne.
British Formula One champ Lewis Hamilton has tweeted his fury after spending 2 hours cleaning up a beach littered with rubbish. He posted a minute-long video urging people to think about the impact they're having on the environment. Take a look.
Hey guys, I'm here in this beautiful part of the world, and we've kind of found this trash space here, and we've come to clean up. But I just wanted you guys to show the impact you're having with all the plastics that you buy and you throw away. This is where it goes.
An Israeli settlement on the West Bank is trying to get rid of hundreds of crocodiles left stranded there after a failed business venture. The reptiles have been stranded at the farm in the Jordan Valley, and some have even made a run for it. The owner had hoped to sell them for their skin, but that's now illegal under Israeli law. To make matters worse, there are fears the crocs will reproduce in their thousands over the coming years. Before we go, here's one last take on Donald Trump's plan to launch Space Force. Late-night talk show host Samantha Bee has premiered a possible anthem for the new armed service. Listen to this.
Space Force, we ride into battle on a Space Horse, of course. Pew, 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 pew. We got you, Space Force. We will fight whoever we get, whoever makes it up here in space, not on Earth. They have to come to us, whoever can afford to. In space, I guess we'll fight Elon Musk. In space, we are the Space Force, Space Force. This is a bad idea, of course.
Well, that's all from the Newsfeed team. Reach out to me with your questions, comments, complaints and suggestions at Oscar Subakti. You'll find us 24/7 on Twitter, YouTube and Facebook. Follow, subscribe and add. See you tomorrow.